All right. Hello, and welcome. Worship of the living God. Grace Baptist Church in Bay County, Florida. Please turn in your Bibles to Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus chapter 19. Thank you, friends, for going through this series. One of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about more is we're coming into Leviticus chapter 19 by way of Leviticus chapter 18. And what was Leviticus chapter 18 about? I called it last time sort of a forbidden chapter.
Pagan practices.
Yeah, sexual forbidden practices. And I called it a forbidden chapter because it's considered rude, it's considered ungracious speech to talk about things in polite society. Now, friends, I don't completely disagree with that, except to say that in today's quote-unquote polite secular society, it's considered rude to call things sin that God calls sin. And these sexual practices in Leviticus chapter 18 were a big part of it. So verse 7 from Leviticus chapter 18. Don't have sex with your mother. Verse 8. Don't have sex with any of your father's wives. Verse 9. Don't have sex with your sister or your half-sister. Verse 10. Don't have sex with your granddaughter. Verse 11. Don't have sex with your step-sister. Verse 12. Don't have sexual relations with your father's sister. Now, friends, listen, this is not polite conversation in society, and it wasn't necessarily polite conversation in a happier, more Bible-literate and welcoming and affirming Christian time either. But today, the wicked secularists want to do these things. They say, why should we be constrained? Love is love. Verse 13, do not have sex with your mother's sister. But love is love. Verse 14, do not have sexual relations with your uncle, with his wife. But love is love. Verse 15, do not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. But love is love. It's love. And if love wants to be loving, what kind of a God would dare to forbid it? Well, friends, this kind of God, the one writing this chapter. Verse 16, do not have sex with your brother's wife. Verse 17, do not have sex with a woman and her daughter. There is an entire genre of stories on my YouTube feed about such things that come up in my feed. Romance diaries, confessions of a modern man. Searching for love. And you see the video titles. I didn't want to have sex with both a woman and her daughter. But, ... And what are you supposed to do? You click on the video to hear the salacious story. Verse 18, do not marry your wife's sister while your wife is alive and have sexual relations with the sister. There's probably 10 or 15 of those kinds of video feeds that come into my suggested for you button. Do not offer your children as a sacrifice. Now, friends, praise God. Not even the worst secularist in my lifetime has been so bold as to suggest this. But what does it say at the beginning of chapter 18? It says this is what the people of Egypt were doing. This is what the people of Canaan were doing. The people I'm sending you to replace. Verse 22, do not practice homosexuality. Ouch. Verse 23, do not have sex with an animal. Friends, all of these things you can go online today and find little salacious corners of the internet where you can have your vices titillated. Now we've gone through that, and the text says why these things are detestable to God. And the text gives instruction, do not do these things. But what, friends? These are the things that today's society wants to embrace. Love is love. And you would have to be unloving to come between a lover and his beloved. One of the charges that comes back, Pastor Bruce will tell you this. Who are you, Christian, to ram your sexual ethic down our throats? And I always answer, I'm nobody. I'm not your boss. I'm not your governor. But I am a reader of scriptures. And you see the accusation online. I'm sure this has happened to Pastor Bruce. You Christians just love regulating other people's bedroom life. Why? You do it because you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're homophobic. Friends, is that true? Is that what motivates the criticism? Well, that's often the accusation, isn't it? And that's often why these discussions are shut down. You, Christian minister in the pulpit, you are speaking out against these sexual sins because you yourself are a closet sexual pervert. Pastor Bruce has been accused of that. I've been accused of that. That's the only reason why you're talking about this is because you are so sexually repressed. Friends, love is love, right? And you cannot oppose our sexual ethic. The moderns suggest, without being a hate-filled hater. First of all, that breaks my heart to hear. Why? Because I don't think I've given any evidence other than opposing the practices that are listed here. I don't think that holding to these values makes one a hater or a bigot or phobic. But the accusation sure is intense. You do it. You, Christians, preach about sexual ethics from an unwholesome standing place. You throw your rocks from your unwholesome place, and your teachings are at best only your own private preferences. And in a modern day where love is love, have you noticed that love is love gets you out of everything in these modern discussions? Love is love, they say. And the only thing that's unacceptable is condemning what the moderns find acceptable. It's okay if the people involved consent. It's okay if love expresses itself. And if you question that, I question you. That's what moderns have said to me over and over again. Well, friends, we Christians have to have an answer for this, right? What is there truth to the accusation? Am I just an anti-pleasure killjoy? Do we Christians just want to cut people off from legitimate pleasures? We have to give an answer. And friends, I read in you chapter 18 from Leviticus, and often that's talked about as if, oh, you Christians just want to suppress a healthy sexual ethic. But friends, as we've been going through Leviticus, do you see that there's so much more to what these prohibitions are about? In other words, Leviticus chapter 18 was about sexual ethics. But the previous chapters were about other things as well. What's my point? All of Leviticus is building toward what we're coming into in Leviticus chapter 19. And it's my answer to the critic of the Christian, to the modern who says all things are permissible as long as it's done in love. And shout your abortion. So what's the answer then? You've spent a lot of time building this up. What then is the answer? Well, friends, let's go to Leviticus chapter 19, verse 1. And the answer is right here. The Lord also said to Moses, verse 2, give the following instructions to the entire community of Israel. Here it is, friends. This is the $1 million sentence. You must be holy, because I, the Lord, your God, am holy. Friends, that's my answer to the critic who says, why do you think your criticism in Leviticus chapter 18 ought to bind my sexual expression. Why can't I have sex with whom I want, when I want, and how I want? Friends, great question. And that's my answer right there. You must be holy, because I, the Lord your God, am holy. I ask people in discussions of sexual ethics, because very oftentimes people want to get into the minutia. Well, is it okay to do X? If not, why? Well, if the Hebrew word means this, but not quite that, then can't we wiggle our way into the sexual practice with a loose hermeneutic? I want to say this to you, friends. Maybe. Play your hermeneutic games if you must. Read the scriptures with as much wiggle room as you dare. But remember this. The Lord knows how much wiggle room he put in those words. And you and I have to answer to him. And God says, you must be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. Now I ask friends, do you want to be holy? Are you striving to be holy? And I have never had a secularist say to me, this is after 50 years of Christianity, so I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never had a secularist in a conversation say to me, you know, I really yearn to be holy. I've had secularists say to me, I want to sleep around. I want to engage in an ethical non-monogamy. I want to be in an open relationship. I want to have sex with whom I want to have sex. I've heard that from secularists over and over and over again. I've heard shout your abortion. I've never had a secularist say to me, the thing I want more than anything else is to be holy. And to be holy in the way God desires for me to be holy. Friends, that's my answer. My answer is that God desires something of me. And God desires something of you. And when I say desire, what do I mean by that? I mean that he has a prescriptive ideal. He has a purpose for which he made you and he made me. And the purpose is holy and high and good. As opposed to what? As opposed to defiled. As opposed to wicked. As opposed to evil. So friends, when my secularist friend comes to me and says, oh, we kissed, but we didn't go all the way. And then they come to me and say, oh, okay. Well, we went to first base, and then we went 3/4 of the way to second base. But we didn't go all the way home. Then someone comes to me and says, sure, we went to first base and then second base, but we stopped. We didn't go to third base. How can you forbid it? because I didn't score, I didn't go all the way home. Friends, you are in the wrong game. If baseball was a game of holiness, I do not want to play that game. So what am I saying? I don't want to be in the business of deciding how much defilement is okay. Friends, are there corner cases? Are there ethical gray areas? Are there presentations where you could lay out an argument that could possibly be difficult to answer? Sure. Friends, I don't want to be in that business. And I think if you have a desire to be holy, then what? Stopping at first base and not going all the way to second base, third base, and around to home again is not the win that you think it is. What's the answer? The answer is to not play the game of defilement at all. Well, you Christians are just sexual fuddy-duddies. Well, maybe. But if you look at the rest of Leviticus chapter 19, you will see that it's not just about sex. Rather, this idea of holiness, being holy before the Lord, being holy unto the Lord, being holy people, permeates everything in ethics. It is a core foundational principle. And you start to see in verse 3 in chapter 19 how that permeates into what? All the rest of ethics, not just the sex part. Verse 3, each of you must show great respect for your mother and father. I am on Reddit, Facebook, and some of these other places where leftists, where progressives say, I'm not obliged to show respect to my mother and father until they first meet my standards. God says here, show great respect for your mother and father. And what else? You must always observe my Sabbath days of rest. I am the Lord your God. So forget all the sexual stuff we've been talking about for the past 20 minutes. If you don't show great respect for your mother and father, you are declaring by your actions that you have no interest in doing the thing that pleases God. Verse 4, do not put your trust in idols or make metal images of gods for yourselves. Why? I am the Lord your God. Well, that's an easy one, modern people say. I don't bow down to statues. There's no golden calf statue over in the town square that I bow down to. I'm not so sure, friends. I am a capitalist through and through, as opposed to a socialist. I have worked in the financial industry. I have been to New York City. I have been on Wall Street. I have seen the great big bull statue in New York City. Have you? I'm not so sure that we are past worshiping idols or images of gods. I think we're much more subtle about it. Verse 5. When you offer a sacrifice, when you sacrifice a peace offering to the Lord, offer it properly, so you will be accepted by God. Is it enough to merely have good intentions in your ethics? Is it enough for an alcoholic to say, well, I really didn't want to take that drink? No, you must not take that drink in addition to not wanting to take it. It's the same thing here with the sacrifice. You have to follow God's rules, God's laws. What's the point? I'm online all the time. What were the aims of the French Revolution? That wicked secular movement in France. Liberté.
Fraternity.
Equality.
Fraternity.
Fraternity. But what kind of liberty did the Jacobins want? They wanted a godless kind, where who decided what was right or wrong? The individual decided. Friends, that's not what you can get out of reading this text. God says, when you offer a sacrifice, offer it properly. Sacrifice must be eaten on the same day you offer it, or on the next day. What's left over on the third day must be burned up. If any of the sacrifice is eaten on the third day, it will be contaminated. I will not accept it. Anyone who eats it on the third day will be punished for defiling what is holy to the Lord and will be cut off from the community. You mean it matters to God when I eat my food? Well, friends, in Old Testament Israel, when that food was part of the proper worship of God, yes, it mattered. Verse 9, when you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your fields. Do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Why is that important? What's that saying? When you go to build your paycheck, don't squeeze what's paying you so much that you throttle it. And in fact, who's going to be blessed by you not picking everything up at harvest time? Remember the book of Ruth? What happens? Ruth goes out in the harvest, and she follows the harvesters, and she picks up for herself.